Awesome. So we are going to do this podcast. We are just finished up an investor seminar with the ever amazing, talented LaToya Washington. I think I'm having a stroke. Her amazing husband, Dr. Kevin Washington. They are investors. She is also the team leader of Morgan & Company and associate broker for LPT. Yes. Is that correct? Awesome.
Correct.
And Kevin does a bunch of other cool stuff too.
Yeah, I'm a good sidekick.
That's right. That's right. So let's go ahead and get started. Tell us about, we have a few people out here that will be asking us some questions about investing, but go ahead and get started by giving us a little introduction.
I'll let
All right.
you
How you got started?
I appreciate it. So I'll start. Like you said, I'm Dr. Kevin Washington. I go by Dr.K. I also host a podcast that I had the pleasure of having Sidney on and learning a lot about his story and his business and how he's been able to grow and help develop people. I'm a real estate investor as well. I invest with my wife and just here to share as much as possible, help people grow and learn too.
Awesome. Thank you.
I think you got something new to share.
I think you do too.
So I'm also another tick. I'm also a mortgage loan originator. I just passed that test yesterday.
There you go.
Woo, yes. And so you can also follow him at Success Leaves Clues podcast as well to catch some of those gems. And
absolutely.
It's awesome. I'm LaToya Washington. I am the owner of Team Morgan & Co. Realty here in the Richmond, Virginia area. I also am a real estate investor alongside this guy here. Great business partner. And I also wear many hats. So I own a couple title companies, just doing my thing in this real estate industry.
That's right. That's right. So when did you guys get started in the investment side?
We got started in investing in 2013. We tried it. Didn't work. So jumped back in 2021, and now we are in full swing. We have found our rhythm.
Nice.
And we have some fix and flips and some rental properties out there now.
Awesome. So 2021, we're in 2023. So in 2 years, how many properties have you done?
We will hit 16 by the end of this year as far as fix and flips. And then we have 2 rental properties. Awesome.
So when you guys first got started, not in 2013, but the reboot, well, when you did the reboot, what was your strategy? Because I think some of the biggest hurdles for most people is money, right? Because for a lot of people, the saying is use other people's money. I know you guys told us that when we met, talked about investments, use other people's money. But the problem is, how do you use other people's money, right? Because a lot of people come in and they're like, hey, I just don't have anything, right? So where do you go from there?
So the biggest myth that I hear on social media is when people say you don't need money to invest. That's not true. You need money. It doesn't have to be your money. So that's the trick there. And you can find different ways to do that. So you can have, there's traditional lenders, there's hard money lenders, there's private money lenders. I think the best way to get into investing if you don't have capital yourself is to find private money. Private money can be an aunt and uncle, it can be a neighbor, it could be a coworker, a lot of people, right? And so by coming to events and being around, groups and things like this, that's how you get access to capital, because you start finding out who has money. A lot of times there's people that have money that's about to be taxed. There's money that they just need to put to work. For example, our bank currently, they have a CD that's like, I think 4.5%. That's astounding, 4.5%. They're going to tie your money up anywhere 9 months to 12 months, and they're going to give you 4.5%. Well, I can say, hey, Sidney, invest your money with me. I'm going to give you 10, 12, 15%, depending on what we negotiate. That's triple what he's going to get, and the bank's going to tie it up for 9 months. I say, Sidney, I'm going to do that in about 90 days, and I'm going to give you a return on your money. So he's going to get, let's just call it 12%. That's 3 times what he would have made in a year at the bank by putting his money to work. He doesn't necessarily have to do anything unless he can be a silent investor, right?
Sure.
All right, so he puts his money to work. He's going to get 12%. I'm going to do that in 90 days. How many 90 days do we have in a year? So I'm getting him 3 times his money. It was rhetorical. But I'm getting him 3 times his money and I can do that 4 times in a year, he's going to say, well, dang, all right, I'll give you some money. I'll give you 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, you know what I mean? And now you who want to invest, who didn't have any money, have now found some money, right? Because you found the solution. The solution is to give him a better return, and his solution is he wants to get more money. Everybody's winning. So you got to find those situations and those scenarios that will cause money to come to you. It's there.
Yeah.
So one step further. So now you've identified, I don't know what I'm doing, right? I want to invest. I want to make money. I want to be rich, because that's what all the HGTV channels tell me to do.
Yeah, that's what they're doing.
Right?
So when I go get a traditional mortgage, it goes I go through whatever mortgage company, bank, whatever, and I go through the underwriting, and it's a pain, and they ask for all these things. I gotta have credit and all this other stuff. So what does that look like with private money and hard money when we start talking about that stuff? Because credit's not as important, right? I mean, you don't have to have that perfect credit score. You can go a little bit lower. They don't do, from my understanding, right? But what does that look like? Because now you got people, now I don't have any money, but I can find money through these lenders. Yeah. But what if I don't have the best credit?
So as far as credit, you don't need to have the best credit to get hard money loans. What they usually pull your credit for with the hard money lender is just to make sure that you don't have any type of judgments or liens that will end up putting a lien onto the property that you guys are going to be doing a deal on. So they are just looking to make sure, are you credit worthy as far as the asset that they have to protect, because they're going to be giving you hundreds of thousands of dollars. So they want to make sure that they're protecting that at the end of the day. They also do look at your experience sometimes as well. Yep. And so if you have experience from doing joint ventures with other partners, or if you have a partner in your deal with you that has the experience, they're bringing the experience. You guys may not have the best credit, but they'll still lend on it. Yep. So there's ways around it.
And they're going to ask for the experience. They're going to ask for addresses. And, you just can't walk in there and be like, oh, I've done 12.
Absolutely not. Yeah. They're going to say, what are those addresses, please?
Absolutely.
And they look to make sure that you are on the deed. So I always recommend, if you do a joint venture, make sure you have a joint venture agreement. And then if you can, have yourself placed on the deed as well.
Awesome. So we got our money. Got that secured. Now we need to find properties, right?
Yeah.
I know earlier I think you said finding properties was the easy part.
It is.
Okay. We'll go with that. So what are the main ways you find? We've talked before. You say you get most of your properties off the MLS.
I do. Yeah. Guys, the price that is on the MLS is a suggestion.
Right.
Okay? That's how I look at it. Your property is in distress.
Yep.
Underperforming, and so I'm going to offer you a price to solve your problem that you have currently. We have bought properties on the MLS. They were listed at $185, and I ended up buying it for $110.
Oh, wow.
So it's a suggestion.
Okay.
I just need to be able to solve your problem. And also, if you have your starting 5, like I talk about, then you're going to be able to go into that deal and negotiate with them.
Right.
So if I have my home inspector go out and do a little home inspection, now I can tell you what you thought your house was actually worth $185. Did you know all these problems exist that I now have to take on?
Now you've got ammo.
Now I have some ammo in my pocket, and I can come and I can negotiate that price on down.
And I think that's one of the biggest, I guess, myths or unknowns is that people think that when you go, whether it's through a wholesaler with the wholesaler in the room or through the MLS, that the price is the price.
Yeah.
Right. But everything's negotiable. Yeah. You know, no matter who you go through, or if you just contact the seller directly, right, the homeowner directly, it's always negotiable. Because at the end of the day, you have a formula that you have to make sure that the numbers work. Right.
Exactly. And a lot of people, when they see the prices on the MLS that the seller is asking for, they look and they're like, well, I don't want to insult them by sending, an offer to them, and I'm lowballing them.
Yeah.
Well, they insulted you when they asked you for $165,000 or $185,000 for a house that's not worth that in the condition that it's in.
Yeah.
So it's like, submit the offer to them. It's okay. It's a numbers game. The more offers you submit, the more likely you are to get a property under contract.
Right.
The two things you asked about so far, Sidney. You talk about the deal is easy to find, and finding money. So a lot of people right now, you might look at it and you say, okay, how am I going to get this money, or how am I going to get this deal? I don't have it. Let me ask you, for those that watch this nationally, whatever city you're in, or if you're in Richmond, don't answer this out loud, but do you know where I can go right now and get some heroin? Right now. Can you take me right now?
There's some heads shaking.
Hopefully the answer to that is no, right? But there is somebody in Richmond that can get me heroin right now. The problem is I'm not in that world. I'm not looking for heroin. I'm not hanging out with heroin addicts, but it's easy for them. It's hard for me. I can't go get no heroin right now.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? So as soon as you start getting in the world, start getting in rooms and having conversations with people, there's somebody with a deal right now. And so it gets easier, and they start knowing you for that.
Sure. I mean, it's no different than flipping cars, right?
Yeah.
You get, like, I don't know where to go to find these old 1960s, cars and whatnot. But if that's your world, you get into it, you know where those deals are, and you know who to go to offload it.
Yeah.
Same thing, right?
And then those people start calling you too.
Yeah.
Offload
Absolutely.
properties. So
Absolutely.
then the deals start coming in easy.
Yeah. So with hard money or private money, either one, is there 100% financing, or do you need to put money down?
Good question.
That is a great question. So it all depends on who you're actually working with and what you guys negotiate. There is 100% financing out there where they will take care of purchase and they'll take care of the rehab. You have to put absolutely nothing in, but those numbers have to make sense, right? So we always talk about numbers. The numbers is the important part. Some of the lenders, they will require you to have some skin in the game, especially if you're a newbie. And so it could be that you have to have 10% that you're bringing to the table.
Okay.
But if you use the creative ways that Dr. K was talking about, where you can partner and have some private money lenders in your deal, you still aren't bringing your money. You're using other people's money for that deal.
Right. And when you get these loans, hard money, private money, whatever, you're most of the time, right, you're just paying interest-only payments, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
During the process of the project.
So you're not taking a whole nother mortgage for the entire.
No.
Right.
Well, the interest-only payments are a mortgage.
It looks like a mortgage payment.
It looks like a mortgage payment. So it feels like a mortgage payment.
It feels like it because they're charging you the interest.
Because it's higher interest.
It's higher interest. So right now, if you look at the retail market, you may be at right around 6.75 right now, 7%. So when you are going to do hard money, they may be lending to you at 10%, 11%.
11%.
So in that case, some people are like, "Ooh, I don't want to do it because that interest is high."
But who cares?
But it's the cost of money. Does your numbers still make sense, guys?
Right.
Like that's the biggest part.
So now we got the money. We found the property. Right. We've negotiated. Everybody's happy. Now we won't go down the rabbit hole of finding contractors, right? But there's two schools of thoughts, I guess. Really, there's probably more. But there's two ways to manage the projects, right? It's one that you can find a Class A contractor, Class B, Class C, whoever. And for those that don't know, the only difference between Class A, B, and C is how much money they can handle for projects in a year. It doesn't matter. It doesn't mean anything else. It just means that Class A has unlimited amount of projects they can do. Class C, they cap, right? They can only handle this much money. So you can have one of those guys, and they're going to charge more money because they're the project manager. They're the ones that's calling the electrician. They're the ones calling the plumbers. They're the ones calling the roofers, and they're overall managing the project. Or you can be the project manager, and you can call all these individual people, and you can cut out those fees. Right?
Exactly.
So which way do you guys tend to go in that world?
So for those of y'all who didn't hear the intro, we wear a lot of hats. So I am okay with feeding the general contractor. Yeah. I am okay with feeding a Class A. Why? Because once you start scaling, like we are, to be able to do 16 projects, it takes time. Yeah. And so I'm willing to pay for the time because we still have full-time jobs. Yep. We still have companies that we own, other businesses. So it's like, I'll pay you. Yeah. As long as my numbers work, I'm good with it.
So how do you handle the contractors when it comes to the trips to Lowe's and Home Depot and all those things, and because we've talked about that before. I know you guys set up accounts, right?
Yes.
So what's your stopgap for when he needs a new Milwaukee drill?
They're gonna tell me.
Ideally, you want your contractor to handle everything. I don't want to go to Lowe's. I don't want to do anything. But some contractors are going to, if they don't have the capital to really run their business right, so what they're going to do is they're going to say, okay, well, we need you to purchase the materials, things like that. Again, I make my money, I do IT work. So I make my money doing IT. So I'm going to keep making that money. I'm not going to take away from that time. She makes her money buying and selling real estate. It's not going to take away from that time. So we set up accounts at Lowe's and Home Depot. The contractor can go in there. They can get whatever on the list that they need. And the Home Depot Pro account is going to call us, and then they're going to authorize the payment. And then all we do is verify that there's nothing in there.
Like a Milwaukee drill.
Like a Milwaukee drill. We don't buy tools. We buy materials,
tools.
Right? If the contractor doesn't have the right saw to do something, that's your problem. It's your business, right?
Figure it out.
But if you need materials to do the property, then that's we'll pay for that.
So from there, now we got the money, we got the house, we got the contractors lined up, and as we talked about during the actual seminar, always keep in mind, interview your contractors, right? See their work, ask them specifics, like you said earlier. Is this your project? No, are you doing the flooring? Are you doing the painting? Are you doing the roofing? Yeah. Because otherwise, when you call them later, like, yeah, I can do that roofing, and you find out that they're watching YouTube while they're doing the roofing. So you go through all that, and what's your typical timeline?
So typical timeline for us to be able to purchase property and rehab, 90 days we're out of it.
Yep.
Yeah, 90 days we should be back on the market if it's a fix and flip.
Okay.
If it's a rental, within 6 to 8 weeks we should be done.
Right.
And back out.
And how are you pricing projects when you're walking through? Because that's also another challenge is when because you can look. If you've never walked through an investment property, you're going to say no to every single investment property.
Yeah.
Every single one.
You're like,
right?
oh, I'm scared.
Yes, because it all looks expensive, right? So how are you pricing without bringing, because the other side of all this is time, especially in this market, right?
Yes.
We had a break for a couple months, but we're back in this market. And it's hey, I have a deal. And then you get 15 people within a minute saying, send me the info, and it's gone. Yeah. And you don't have time to say, well, let me get my contractor, let me get this person, let me get that person, so I can get ballpark figures to figure out how much this is going to cost me, right? So what's your guys' formula when you're trying to figure that stuff out?
I got it. So when it comes to figuring out the project, when you walk into these homes that are in distress, you kind of are doing an estimate. So if you've talked with contractors, you've interviewed them, you've asked them their price square foot, based on condition wise, then you can walk in and do an estimate when you're looking at the properties itself. Get it under contract.
Right.
And then if you need to renegotiate it later, you can.
Okay.
Because maybe you have a contractor that comes in now and give you a full scope of work, and now you need to go back to the seller and state, hey, the house actually, you have ammo, right? So you're filling your ammo from the home inspection to the contractor's scope of work, and now you're going back and you're renegotiating and stating, hey, in order to keep this deal on the table, we need to get to here. Because
you're needing to get how much out of that property?
So
I love it.
That's a good question. Because all right. So if we tell you a number, don't take that number and stick to it. Your business might be different, right? But that's right, Sid. Everybody should have a limit, right? If you do a flip, you may say, look, if I'm not going to make $20,000 on this property profit, then I'm not going to do it. Our minimum is $50,000. So we try to stay somewhere between like 50, 70,000 profit. And if it's not going to work, then it's not the house for you. Sometimes you got to walk away, not be emotional. But when Toya's talking about renegotiating stuff, most people don't have a lot of capital. They spend money hypothetically before they even receive it. If you put an offer in on a house and they accept that offer, they've already spent that money in their mind.
Yeah.
Right? They're paying off credit cards.
Yep.
They're taking a trip to Aruba. They got college for their kids. It's gone. Right? So if I come back to you and I say, look, my contractor gave me this number. There's a lot more wrong with your house than I thought. The home inspectors looked at it. I still want to buy it, but now I got to get it for this number. Or I got to walk away. Not every time, but a lot of times they're going to negotiate with you because they've already spent that money. They're like, well, I need the money. So I don't want them to walk away from this deal.
Was that number your number when you started too, what you had to get out of it? Or were you more comfortable just saying, hey, we just got to get started?
We didn't have a number.
We didn't have a number
Okay.
when we got started.
Yeah.
We kind of just ripped the Band-Aid off and got started.
Okay.
And I was like, as long as I make something, I don't care.
Yeah.
Right. And I think a lot of people, that's where you got to start because, again, especially if you're using other people's money because they want experience, some of them, right?
We were paying for education through sweat equity.
Right.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's like, you know what, as long as I don't lose money, yes, it's a lot of work. Nobody wants to spend 3 months dealing on a project like this, whether you're actually physically doing it, some of it, all of it, or just managing it, and then just walk away, just breaking even. But at the same time, like you said, the more you do, the better relationships you get, the better deals you get.
Yes.
So that's when you can start setting those. So you know what? If it's not $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 profit, not interested. You start setting those boundaries and figuring out again what your business model is, right?
Absolutely.
Because for some people, they'll do 10 flips a year and they're okay making $10,000 profit. That's $100,000 in their pocket. For some people, like, nah, my kids are expensive. I need a lot more than that. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You got to figure out.
Scaling helps that, like you're saying. So if you're doing 10 flips a year and you're making 10, 20,000, that ain't nothing to be mad about, right?
Absolutely.
So that really helps the more volume you do. And it cushions your risk.
Yep.
Yes.
Well, and that's the other thing. That's the other part of this, right? So it's not just what you need off of it. It's also what's going to happen when I, like you said earlier, tear down that wall and I get an
Yeah.
That
Exactly.
you have to have some type of buffer in, or an HVAC gets stolen, or that roof that looked okay, and then all of a sudden, right before we get ready to close, it starts leaking, right?
Yes.
And now we just gotta go ahead and rip it off and put a new one on, right? Or that's the stalling point, right?
Yes.
And it's listed because we see that sometimes. You list a house, it sets on the market, it gets lots of showings, but all the feedback is, but the roof, or but the HVAC. Yeah, I'm paying because we're in a different market than 2% interest,
Paying closing costs.
paying closing costs. How home prices did not drop.
Yeah.
They've gone up. So now I'm paying $350,000 for a house that should be $250,000 at 7% interest.
Yeah.
That HVAC. It's 20 years old, right? So now it's like, well, if I need to move this property at the price I need to get it at, we got to put a new HVAC in, right?
Yep.
So from there, everything's done. Do you guys use staging?
We do. So depending on the area, we will stage.
Okay.
But I'd say 9 out of 10.
Yeah.
All of our properties get staging.
Yeah, I've noticed that a lot of investors push staging.
Yeah.
Good investors, right?
It
There's a lot of
definitely
investors
helps.
out there, but a lot of good investors push staging where a lot of people. And what does that do for you?
So the staging actually helps me in the real estate world, buying and selling and helping people every day. Staging helps people visualize, especially if you have done add-ons to the home. Like maybe you converted the attic, or maybe you changed what was a Cape Cod. You've now made it an entire floor that's a suite style. So having those staging pieces in place allow people to see, oh, that's what I could do with this space, compared to if they just walked in the house and they're like, oh, this room is too small. Well, if I already have it staged with a full size or a queen size bed, now your bed can actually fit in that room, and it's not as small as you thought it was.
Right.
So it's just getting people to be able to visualize themselves there. And it also helps to sell the home, takes their eyes away from the little small things. Maybe your contractor didn't quite mud properly. So you're like, okay, now there's some staging there. They're not going to be like, oh, there's a blemish there.
Yeah.
So staging definitely helps. And it allows people, too, to see more value in your home, I feel like. So they walk in, it looks nice, it smells nice. It's already inviting and welcoming.
Yep.
And now they're ready to put in an offer instead of coming in and being like, no, I see these blemishes, this, and now they're going to come in and try and negotiate you down.
Yeah. Yeah. So you do staging, professional photos?
Yes,
of course.
professional photos every time.
Not on your phone?
No cell phone photos.
No cell phone. Okay.
Nope.
It's like that, what we talked about during the seminar, like stepping over dollars to pick up pennies.
Right.
Yeah.
So somebody might say, well, I don't want to pay a stager $1,200 to $1,500, however much that stager charges. But what value is that going to bring to the house? Like, just pay the people. Let other people make money. Let other people do the job that they're professional at, right? And then you're going to make your money. Also,
Include it in your cost.
Well, this all goes back to, and this isn't just contractors. This applies to home inspectors. It applies to realtors. It applies to contractors. There's a lot of them, but very few business owners.
Yes.
And when you get an investment, investing is a business, right? It's not just something you feel like doing, right?
Exactly.
It's a business. So business has cost.
Yes.
It doesn't matter what business you're in, you have cost. It doesn't matter how lean you run it, there's still cost. And in order to run the business to the most efficient way possible, or in order to get the most out of your business, you have to spend that money. But you have to be able to understand that, to be professional investor, that we need a stage.
Yes.
We need to have a professional photographer. We need to have, licensed contractors.
Yes.
People who know actual real estate agents, not for sale by owners.
Yes.
Things like that.
Definitely.
So for sure. So with that was kind of a lot of rapid fire questions, just kind of one after another. But I will see if anybody has any questions that wasn't either answered during the seminar or.
Oh.
When you look at your star 5, right?
Mm-hmm.
Top 5. Which one of those top 5 is really going to hold your hand to make sure you don't mess this up, or this is trial and error? Which one of them that you can say, all right?
So they're not on that starting 5.
Okay.
So the question is, LaToya has a starting 5, and it's the 5 people you need on your team to start investing. And the question is, which one of those is going to mentor you for the most part?
Kind of hold
right?
your hand.
Yeah, hold your hand.
And that is going to be outside of those 5 people. You will need to get a coach or a mentor that can hold your hand, that you can call up and run a deal past, maybe run your numbers with, maybe even walk a project with you. And so you have to have someone outside of that. Yep. So add coach and mentor to that list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, everybody on that list and the people even not on that list, I mean, I got to tell all my clients, I don't care if you buy the house or not, right?
Yeah.
Because I get asked, after an inspection, would you buy this house? No. But it's not for the reasons that you think, right? Because
Yeah.
I don't want to live in Richmond, or I don't want to live, in a 100-year-old house, or I'm just not buying a house, right? So they don't have they have a vested interest in their services. They don't have a vested interest in your investment, right?
Yes.
But that's where all these different networking groups. I mean, you get on Facebook and there's a dozen of them, 2 dozen, 3 dozen that meet weekly, monthly in the city of Richmond and its surrounding areas, or wherever you're at. There's always a mentor. I think there was someone here that said that they do mentoring, coaching, mentoring. Was that you?
That was us.
Well, there was somebody else too.
Oh.
But either way, I mean, it doesn't matter how big or small. There's always somebody saying, "Hey, I'm willing to mentor or coach."
Yeah. The
Yeah.
other thing too
Investors.
is these people aren't investors, right?
Yeah.
They may have, your attorney may own a rental property, but they're not real estate investors necessarily. Your contractor, daggone sure ain't an investor.
Not going to help.
You know what I mean? So those people are there for their profession, right? They're there to run their business. They're not necessarily, they don't necessarily have your best interest at heart.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, and this is nothing against, again, contractors. I know it sounds like we're beating them up, but they're also running a business. So they're going to say, hey, maybe you should upgrade these doors, right? maybe you should redo the trim in here. And you're like, yeah, that's a good idea. And then before you know it.
Do it on your house.
Yeah, right.
Not this one.
But yeah, you got to have, I mean, I text LaToya a lot,
Yeah.
asking
okay,
questions.
though.
You know, what do you think about this one? What do you think about this? You know, where this is at? All that, all those things that to see if it makes sense to even go look at it.
Yeah.
You know,
And
go
we
from
coach
there.
and mentor people even outside of the state of Virginia.
Yeah.
That are just getting into real estate investing, and they need, you know, the hand holding. They need someone that they can call and say, hey, do these numbers make sense? We had some that recently just closed on a property, first time flipping in Charlotte, North Carolina. They did
Nice.
amazing. So we try to make sure when we got started, remember we talked about it. We had our hurdles, right? We
Yeah.
had to do a recharge, right? So we had to go outside of our state to get that.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to make sure that we were here to be able to do the hand holding, reach down and help someone
Right.
else.
Right.
Your costs in our budget so the numbers can look right, and we have
Yes. Absolutely. There are creative ways in financing your coaching and mentoring, I promise you.
That's right. That's right. Yes, sir. Yeah. Question is, what is step one for starting today?
Step one for starting today, if you already have your team in place and you have the deal, the next thing is to actually take action. So if you have that deal in place and you have your team in place, then my guess is you're already under contract. Is that correct?
Yeah, I may have improperly slid that piece in there that you have the deal already.
Okay.
Say
You're looking for deals.
Let's say you're
Okay.
at that place now. You got your attorney, you know, you're gonna sell it when you flip it, you got your contractor that'll help you with the process.
Okay. So if you're looking for deals, then the first action item, if you were to leave here today and you have your team in place and now you're going to find the deal, I would find all of the properties that I feel like would work, that are in distress, that are underperforming, and I would go out into the field and I'm going to start looking at those properties. If my contractor can go along with me, I'm going to take him with me. Why? Because he can now be at the property and he can point out things that you're looking to do and give you an estimate. I think going out into the field and actually just getting in that environment, remember we say get into the rooms, get into the environment, surround yourself with it. The more practice you put into going out to the properties and actually seeing it, knowing what your contractor looks at, how they price stuff, is going to help you be able to go out and do it yourself without your contractor.
You can just say what she said.
Yeah, I use that answer a lot. No, but
All my answers are great.
they
No.
are. She be on it. But one of the things that I'm big on is execution, right? So a lot of times we get in our own way. We want to overanalyze. We want to overthink. We want to say, well, what about this and that? Sometimes you got to just get started. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean go spend $200,000 and buy a house today, but get started in something. Get started in those steps. Get started meeting with an attorney, because all attorneys aren't going to work the way you want them to work. Some attorneys don't work with wholesalers. They don't take wholesale deals. Some contractors don't really work well with investors. They're the kind of contractors that work for your new construction builders, right? So they're used to getting paid in a different way. They're used to doing a different type of project. They don't know how to necessarily fix up a property, but they can build a property from ground up. It's different when you have to fix somebody else's issues, right? So start taking steps, start actually doing the business. And I think that's going to be like I said about the whole, heroin act and all that stuff. Once you start getting in that world, it'll start coming together for you. So just get started.
Investment, not heroin.
Yeah. Get started in investment.
The investment. No.
Get started in the investment. That was an analogy.
Yeah. Don't get started.
Don't get started on the.
In
No,
heroin.
we do not condone drugs here.
How often are you guys visiting properties throughout the process?
Ooh.
Because you both have very busy lives.
Yes. So honestly, we try to visit our properties once a week.
Okay.
So we try and go on Fridays, and we stop by each of the projects just to see what's going on. Typically, our contractor, our GC, will send us an update every week. Got it. That's nice. That's cute. But I need to put eyes on it myself as well, because at the end of the day, you're the one who's holding the bag. You're responsible for it.
Yeah.
So you have to make sure that you're physically putting eyes on it. Your contractor could tell you an update and say, hey, we pulled permits. We are installing HVAC this week. Backsplash is going up in the kitchen. And you get there on Friday and none of that happened. But they told you that on Monday.
Yeah.
So the week's over.
Yeah.
Monday through Friday. So what
seen
happened?
I've seen them no work be done for 2 weeks because they've other projects in.
So you definitely want to put eyes on it yourself.
Have you fired contractors?
Absolutely.
Middle of project.
Fast and in a hurry.
And you better fire fast.
Yeah.
You
Quick,
better
fast, and in a
fire
hurry.
fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You have to because it's your asset again. It's you are holding the bag at the end of the day, and it costs you money every day that you hold that project.
Yeah, and that's the thing with going back to using other people's money, right? Because you're being charged daily, and so you literally are losing money every single day.
You got to work the art of it because life happens, right? Life happens to all of us. Contractors get sick. Contractors get tired. Contractors want to take a family vacation. I got all that. So I'm not going to fire you just because something happened. But you got to recognize patterns. You got to recognize somebody who's not good at the job, who's not delivering. Those people we're saying fire.
Yes.
Not just because
Not just
they
'cause
showed up late today,
You
like,
were late today or you didn't show up yesterday.
That's
Okay,
right.
got it.
Any other questions?
I had one about hard money lenders. So I understand you guys say you look at interest rates and all of that. What are like some other intangibles that you guys look for in hard money lenders?
Intangibles for hard money lenders.
So I look at terms. A lot of hard money lenders, they have different terms. Some will do 9 months, 12 months, 18 months. And so you want to analyze your project and say, how long do I anticipate getting this project done? And then what if I don't get it done in this amount of time? Because you're typically going to get hit with a lot of fees and balloon payments if you go past that time. The flip side to that is the longer you go, the higher the interest rate. So if you're already at 10.5%, 11% interest, that's high. And then if you want to go 18 months, now they're going to charge you 12, 13, whatever. It's going to be a much higher interest rate. So that buys you more time, but the money's costing you more, right? So you got to kind of play with that and say, what's going to protect you in your business as far as giving you enough time, but not too much.
And you also want to look for points. See if your lender is charging you points in your loan estimate. And points they can be something that you have to pay at the time that you purchase at closing, or it could be on the back end. So after you've rehabbed it and now you're going to sell it, then they're going to charge you those points, deferred points they call it. So they'll charge you on the back end. So you want to look at that. So it's cost of doing business, right? Cost of money.
And we prefer delayed points.
Yeah.
Because we've paid points both ways, right? But it's more capital out of your pocket to pay points up front. So if a lender charges you 2 points, that's 2%. Let's just say the house is $200,000. That's going to be $4,000 that you have to pay in points just to get the loan, right? You're still going to pay that same $4,000, but it's easier to pay it on the back, right? So then when you sell the house, they're going to take that $4,000. It's just less money out of your pocket. You're going to pay it one way or another. It's just easier to pay
I'd rather pay it on the end.
on the back. Yeah.
And what about I'm sure you look at if they charge a fee for paying it off early. Like if you got like
Yes.
a 9-month or 12-month contract and you're trying to get out in 3 months, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
If there's a early payment fee, prepayment fee penalty.
He owns a
Yeah.
construction company, so he's like, "Why you only
Like,
giving
why
me
you
90
don't have that like that? No. So honestly, that's our standard, right? And we look at that when we're analyzing purchasing the property. How long is it going to take us to get through this project? We've done some projects where, okay, now we're hitting, a $500,000 house at the end of the day. So that one may take a little more time because we're talking over 2,500 square feet. I'm going to get a contractor a little more time. But, so yes, in that case, you may have 4 months. I'm going to give you another 30 days on that to be able to finish that project out. But if new construction can build a house ground up, you can renovate a house in 90 days.
Uh-huh.
You just got to get the contractor to do their job.
Yeah.
And you got to stay on them. Yes.
But see, we also have that conversation up front.
Yeah.
If the contractor says that they can't do this project in that amount of time, maybe you're not the contractor for me, and I go find another one. Or we piece it and we say, okay, well, what part of this project can you take, and then what part do I need to hire or bring in some other people, you know what I mean, to help supplement what you're doing? Because at the end of the day, we're paying, like she said, $90 to $100 a day.
Yeah.
Right? And so I can't have you take an indefinite amount of time. You know, you got some contractors just be like, we get it done when we get it done. Nah.
They're like, well, I went on lunch at 12.
But you got here at 10:30.
And it's now 3.
Yeah, right.
And you're still not back from lunch.
Yeah.
So you have to make sure your contractors are actually showing up doing the job. If they're doing that, like, we're lenient on them.
Yeah.
Everybody, well,
No.
contractor is getting paid throughout the process. Yes.
So when
Yes.
they can expound on this, but when you get your hard money loan, it's also
That money sits in escrow.
so you're
And so
paying
you
it
pull
out.
draws.
Yeah.
As the project goes, and you and your contractor talk up front about how they expect to be paid. Some of them ask for a deposit at the time of starting, and then they may say, okay, we'll take another payment midway, and then they get their final payment. So they may have 3 payments throughout that process. And so the money that you're getting for the rehab, whether the lender is financing 100% of that rehab, that money sits in escrow, and you have to show the lender that you've actually completed certain parts of the scope of work, and then they will release that money out.
Yeah. So your loan is going to be for the house, to purchase the house, and then the repair costs for the house.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
How do you take payment? When do you expect payment? Do you do a deposit and then we do the rest at the end? Do you need payments throughout the project? Because hopefully your contractor can manage their money. That's where the problem lies. Because if you give them, and never, y'all hear me? Is this thing on? Never give a contractor all the money up front. They're going to walk and you're going to be stuck. Never give them all the money up front.
I don't know if you know this or not, but to get that money back from them through legal
from our
means, it moves slow.
Yeah, to legally get that money
Their
back.
court systems move slow.
Yes.
Yes.
Never pay a contractor 100% up front. I always give a deposit, and then we'll go through. And usually it's like 25%. I'm like, hey, I'll get you started. And then you're going to get a couple payments throughout.
Yeah.
Because you'd hate to give them half of the money up front. They go and spend. Then they also bought the subcontractors and everybody lunch, and they done went to dinner on your money, and then they come back to you and they're like, oh, well, we need some more money. Well, what happened? Because I paid you for this part of the scope of work, yet you haven't completed. And so I also look at my scope of work and I see how much each thing cost, and I'm paying you, so I know in the beginning you should be covering these things. Until those things are done, you're not getting no more money.
Yeah, I've done inspections on renovated houses, and there were significant issues, and the seller couldn't pay because of that exact scenario. They all the money was gone. They didn't have any more money because they gave the money up front. Contractor bailed, and they were pretty much kind of DIYing it till the end, and it just wasn't pretty.
And I don't want to scare everybody like your contractor's going to bail. There's a lot of really good contractors out there, which is how we're able to get the products done that we get done. We have really good contractors. But it's just, you got to keep in mind that this is your business. You're protecting you and your business, and they're, doing their job or service. Also, you can't fire somebody that you already paid. Right, so you got you got
hire me if you want to.
you got to manage a certain amount of money to say, okay, now I'm going to go hire XYZ company to step in and finish this project, but I got to have some money to be able to pay them, right? So you got to.
Yeah.
That's another reason why.
And
If
it's
those
also-
contractors don't show back up, at least you can go hire someone else.
And it's also important to know that even when you find good contractors, you're still going to need to keep finding good contractors, because what happens is you find somebody, they're a really good contractor. What happens when somebody's really good at what they do?
Somebody
They
else
get
finds
busy.
them.
Yep.
So at some point they're just going to be too busy for you, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to have to start that process all over again. So the contractor it's a revolving door, and it's not because they're all
So
bad.
you're-
It's just because even the good ones, they just get busy, and they move
So
on to
you're
other
constantly
projects.
adding to your database of vendors.
Yeah.
So you might have like your team that you originally started with, but you're constantly adding to that, so that if one person steps out, gets too busy, can't take you on, you have somewhere else that you can fall in.
Yep.
Yeah.
Do you have another question?
I love it.
Just want to like pick y'all brains a little bit. I think since COVID, anyway, we've seen such a spike in the Airbnb market, right? And now we're getting like a ton of like negative things coming out about it. Different articles talking about the decline in Airbnb, the regulations being enforced. What are y'all thoughts right now on the Airbnb market? And is that something that y'all participate in?
You want to restate for the?
Oh, yeah, sorry. I was just waiting. Yeah, so the question was basically about the Airbnb, how pre-COVID, during COVID, Airbnb really took off. And now in the last, 6 months, a year, there's been a lot of, we'll call it negative articles, negative press coming out. For one, it's saturated in a lot of areas, not all areas, but it's very saturated because everybody wants to do it now. And then two, the negative from just the cost of Airbnb, because people are, and this is everything since COVID, is fees, right?
Yes.
I can't go book something for $100 because when I go to check out, it's $180, So now it's, what are your guys' thoughts on Airbnb? Are you participating in all that
So
stuff?
I'll let Toya talk more about Airbnb because she is in that world more. But I just want to touch on the saturation aspect. I don't believe in saturation. I think it's a myth. I don't think it exists. I believe in abundance. And so you can't tell me there's too many Airbnbs, but there's a hotel on every corner that has hundreds of rooms in that hotel.
Yep.
There's plenty, right? There's plenty of houses to flip. Me and Toya can't take them all. There's some for you, some for you. There's plenty for everybody. I just don't believe in saturation. But
Absolutely agree on that. As far as Airbnb, we do not participate in Airbnb. It is a avenue that we had thought about, but we were, when we got started in real estate investing, it was to get, I guess, our systems and processes together, like get perfect at something before it's like all these things came out, right? Social media is telling you, go do this, go do this, go do this. Stop jumping. Don't jump on everyone's bandwagon. Everything isn't for you. You may hate Airbnb. I personally, when we were looking at Airbnb, I was just like, I'm not sure if that's something I want to take on right now, because you have to manage that property still. And it's constant turnover, right? So it's not like our long-term holds, which I prefer more, because now I know I have a tenant in place for 12 months. They can put in a maintenance request. I can fix that. But when I have people coming in weekly, daily, I don't want to run the hospitality business.
Yeah.
So for me and our business, Airbnb wasn't what we wanted to do. As far as the negatives that are coming out, as far as the articles, Airbnb, I know plenty of people who own them, and they're doing well. They're successful at it. Airbnbs in the right locations are doing great. It's for those who picked Airbnbs. Maybe they had an apartment and they were like, oh, I'm gonna make this Airbnb. I want to rent out my place and I'm gonna stay there on the weekends. Well, that may not work for you because of the location of it. Also, there's a lot of regulations in place. You guys know, as we start jumping into new stuff, the government's gonna put their hands in it.
That's right.
They have to regulate it. They have to make sure they're eating off of it too. And they realize, wait, I'm not getting any tax dollars. I'm not getting nothing from this. Hold on. Y'all making all the money. I need some. I want a piece. So they wanted to jump in. So right now the negativity has been because there was so many Airbnbs that came out and there were no regulations in place for it. So now it's just trying to put some reins on it and get regulations in place, make sure that they have permits, make sure that people are doing right by the people that are staying there. The same way that there's regulations for the hotels. It's the hospitality industry at the end of the day. Yeah. Huh. That is an amazing question, and I get asked that question a lot. Why? Because I also run a team, and so I have 8 agents at Morgan & Co., and so that's 8 people that can call me at any point in time.
And they do.
And they do, okay? And then I also have our real estate investment business. He's a client of mine, okay? So he's asking for properties. He's asking to go see stuff. So honestly, time blocking is huge, which is why we try to make sure we know first thing in the morning when we wake up, you're going to have a conversation about what's that day looking like. We honestly have weekly meetings, and those weekly meetings happen every Sunday. Every Sunday, we talk about our calendar. We talk about projects we have going on. We talk about any obstacles or hurdles we need to get over that week. And then it's kind of like, you know what's going on. We share calendars. So I know what he has going on in a day, and sometimes we have to split. And then we're very transparent with our kids. We do have kids, 24, 18, and 13. So we try to make sure that they understand, and we involve them in our businesses. They were here earlier for the seminar. So they are very much involved in our business to understand that everything that we're doing is to build a legacy for them and to help make sure that they understand what real estate is, and what entrepreneurship and business is. So they understand there's me time, there's family time, and then there's one-on-one time individually. So we have a standing date night. We have a standing family time. So it's like, if you put it on the calendar, we live by our calendars. So if you call me and I'm in the middle of a meeting, I'm not going to answer that phone because I live by the calendars. And so that is how we learn to manage our time and the things that we do.
The other thing, too, just to add to that, is we don't necessarily separate a lot of things. So we can go out and we're looking at properties and we're just viewing properties that we're thinking about purchasing for an investment. And then we stop and we pull over to Kroger spot and we grab lunch, and that's a little date night. You know what I mean? Date day, like whatever, right? And so we don't overcomplicate it. It's like all this stuff kind of flows together. And then the kids were here today, and then my son had to go to basketball, tryouts or whatever, so they're gone. And then we're going to see them later. It's like if you overcomplicate it, I think, is the thing, then you're going to get overwhelmed. And you're like, how am I going to get all this stuff done? We kind of get it all done smoothly, like together.
Yeah. And we it's more so making sure you have that support system too. Like having an outlet. Like sometimes you got to say no to stuff. Okay? Say no. It's okay. If it does not align with what you're doing and where you're going, say no. Let me tell you, partying is going to be there. Friends are going to be there. So you have to say no. If they want to go out tonight, well, I'm sorry. Tonight I was actually going to go view some properties. Or tonight I was going to go to this real estate event. There's people right now that we had, registered to come to the seminar today. Where are they right now? They couldn't say no to something else. But that's the difference. Once you say no to something, like stick to it. Know what your goals are and show up for yourself.
I know you do. That's why I looked over there.
Well,
Anyone else have a question?
Do you guys have any experience with like a buy and hold using like government funding or anything like that?
Tell me what you mean by government funding.
If I was to purchase a property, because just to give you information about me, I like work for public housing, but I work in the finance department.
Mm-hmm.
So I deal with like tenants.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just like, okay, I could probably purchase an investment property.
Mm-hmm.
Just like trying to look out for people, find some people that need, public housing or something like that, and
Oh, you mean programs like that? Okay, absolutely, yeah.
On buy and holds. So the question is, how do we feel about?
And then, probably fixing it up.
Uh-huh.
And then buying and holding
The tenant.
Okay,
programs.
and the tenant would be in some type of program. We are perfectly A-okay with
That's
that
the
and
best
love
thing
it.
you
That's
should
the
do.
best way. One of the reasons why we wanted to get into real estate investing was to, a lot of people here, buy back the block. But it's honestly just to create affordable housing. There's people living in conditions where they can't take care of the homes anymore, or the house just hasn't been maintained. You have slumlords and stuff out there. So it's showing them that you can have, better quality of living. And so public housing, being able to do government programs, absolutely, it's guaranteed money coming in. And then you're also giving someone a quality home. And you know who you are personally, so how are you going to show up as a landlord? So I definitely, Section 8, all of it, we do it. Yeah.
So we'll do one more question for the podcast, anyways. Y'all can because Courtney, she got up early. She's tired. She's got other places to be.
Thank you.
She's been glaring at me since she got here. So we'll do one more to record, and then the rest can be
Awesome.
off. Yeah.
Yeah. You might have to do two.
I know.
You didn't ask a question today, so it's okay.
Go for it.
With your busy schedule, if I say, hey, can we get started next month and can we have a consultation? Are you open to that?
Absolutely.
Be like a mentor.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. So we have different programs and things around the room. If you scan, you can reach out to us, and we can reach out to you as well to just tell you about ways of connecting and being able to work together. Absolutely.
That was an easy question. You go
I
ahead and ask
know.
yours.
You can ask yours. Oh,
Okay. So the questions are basically if they're available for mentorship and
Yes.
Consultations, and they absolutely are. So with that, people want to reach you. How do they reach you?
So I am on all social media platforms.
All social media.
All
All
social
of
media
them.
platforms at LaToyaWashington.realtor.
Awesome. Kevin?
And I'm also on all social media platforms, and it's at Dr.K Washington.
Well, I appreciate you guys. Appreciate all the questions. Appreciate you guys taking your time. For those listening, make sure you check out the Success Leaves Clues podcast. It's an amazing podcast. He has a lot of good people on there dropping their
Including you.
their wisdom. Well, he was that was a slow week for him that week. So other people
was a
wouldn't answer
good
the phone.
one.
Yeah. So but no, I appreciate it. I think this was great. We can stay here all day and do
Yeah.
this
Yes.
because this is a never-ending barrel of just information.
Well, thank you for having us.
Yeah.
And for hosting it live and allowing people
Yeah,
to
this
get
was
to
fun.
ask questions. It was fun.
Yeah,
That was good.
different.
Thanks.
Great time.
Thanks.
Do it again.
Yes.
Appreciate it.